My family and I live in a house that belonged to my grandfather, but before that, it belonged to his grandfather, so it's an old house, but it was rebuilt by my father in the 90s. And being so old, there also have been some sudden deaths, including children. As of now, we are 5 family members and I'm the youngest of all. I have always been a firm believer in the paranormal due to some personal experiences of my childhood. The experience I'm going to share today happened in probably January or February 2022. Now the actual story, it was maybe 3 a.m. at night. I was sleeping when I had a sleep paralysis for the second time. I saw a tall black thing standing near my bed on the side of my feet. It was tall, thin, and very, very black, and I don't know how, but I knew it was a male. It had white holes where the eyes were supposed to be. I have a small blue bulb on in my room at night, whose light is enough to make out everything in the room, but this thing was so dark that I couldn't see anything except for its outline. I tried my best to free myself from the paralysis, but it didn't help. Then I started reciting Ayatul Kursi, it's a Quranic dua, in my heart, and then I don't remember what happened next. I think I just blacked out because later when I woke up, that thing was not anywhere in the room, and all was normal, and I felt that it was just a dream. I'm not sure if I saw it in real or dreamt about it, but the fear was real and I had never seen a ghost before. In the morning, I told Mama about it and she believed me but couldn't do anything. Sorry, I forgot to mention one thing, that while this thing was standing and looking at me, there were different voices going on in my head. I don't remember the exact words, but they told me that this thing meant harm to me. I didn't tell my mother about it. After a few days, I completely forgot about it and I just shrugged it off, and after that night I recite a set of prayers so that I won't be haunted at night, and thankfully it has stopped. But the reason I'm sharing this experience is because a few days ago I read a story from somewhere else which was very similar to my experience, and that was the time I remembered my experience and those voices that told me that the thing was going to hurt me. I just feel sickened when I think about it. I've not told it to anyone, but I want your thoughts on it. Is it possible that this creature was not evil, but something less threatening? I've been very disturbed, but I wasn't sure if I should share it here, but I couldn't resist. It was the weekend, so my mother took us to our aunt's house. We decided to stay at her house that night as none of us had school the next day. My uncle and aunt used to rent a house which was in the same city as ours. They had children, 2 daughters and 2 sons, and all of them were in their teens except for the youngest daughter Kay, who was 7 or 8 years old, and we'll name the rest of the children as eldest son T, elder daughter O, and the younger son A. We'll use this information later, coming back to that night. I'll try to explain everything I remember because you see I was very young then and had been in preschool for only 2 years. But even in that age I knew about the existence of ghosts and stuff due to some other experiences. A bit about the house. It was not so big. It had only 2 bedrooms. One was big and the other was half the size of the first one. Both the rooms were connected by a door. The big room had the door leading to the smaller room in one corner and another door leading to the balcony in the one corner. Both these doors were on the same side of the room and the bed faced these 2 doors. My mother, me and my siblings along with my aunt and her 2 daughters O and K slept in the big room, and my uncle and his 2 sons T and slept in the small room. That night we all slept after some chit-chat and stories probably. So it would have been pretty late at night when I got up by sound of someone knocking on the door leading to the smaller room. I didn't see the time. What would you expect from a toddler? The knocks were violent, and the person knocking the door never spoke. I was more puzzled than being scared, as I had just gotten up from deep sleep and was trying to understand what was going on. That person couldn't be any of the 3 men who wanted to use the washroom or the kitchen, as the bath and the kitchen were on the other side of the house led by the small room, and even if it was one of them, he must have had said something instead of banging the door in the middle of the night. So after a few minutes the knocks stopped on that door and it started on the door leading to the balcony. How would have that person got into the balcony, as there was no other entrance to the balcony except that door? I know you must be thinking maybe it was someone from my sister or cousins who went into the balcony, but everyone was sleeping peacefully despite the loud bangs. Now I got scared, so I shook my mother, who was sleeping next to me, to see who was knocking, but she said she couldn't hear any knocks and I was just imagining and I should go to sleep. She pulled me closer to herself, and of course the knocks had stopped by then, so I went back to sleep. I didn't tell it to anyone the next morning, as I didn't feel the need to, and until now I've never discussed it with anyone. My aunt and her children also experienced unusual things while staying there. They would hear someone laughing in the washroom when no one would be using it. My cousin O would be standing in the kitchen and she'll feel someone walk past the kitchen even when there was no one. Things disappearing and reappearing at the same place all by themselves, and strange and unexplainable things happening, etc. Once my aunt was not at home, and the landlords who lived downstairs told my aunt that they could hear someone crying in the laundry area. They asked who was it, but no one responded. Worried, one of them went upstairs to investigate, but no one was there, so that person got scared and ran down. My aunt lived in that house for 3 to 4 years, and then she moved out for some reason. I don't know in what state that house is now, and I never asked my aunt anything about it because her life is already very messed up. I think whatever or whoever lived there never meant to harm anyone except for scaring them. Maybe it just wanted people to be aware of its presence. I am a university student. I usually travel through the local bus. One evening I missed my bus due to my project work, and I decided to call my brother so he could pick me up from my university. When I tried to call him, I realized that I had no credit to make that call. I borrowed the smartphone of my friend and dialed his number. Before I could hear any dial tune, I heard someone mumbling and crying in low voice. I got scared of what was happening and, in a state of confusion, I said, "Hello?" There was no reply from the other side. Then I suddenly checked if I dialed the correct number. And yes, it was my brother's number. I slowly moved the phone toward my ear, and it was the moment of shock when I heard normal dial tune on the other side. My brother didn't pick up my call, so I texted him from my friend's phone, and after a few minutes he picked me up from university. I didn't tell anyone about it because I thought it could be a signal distortion or might be a technical problem with my friend's phone. After this incident, I enjoyed a great weekend with my family and kind of forgot about it, and on Monday I went to university again. Everything was normal, and I wasn't thinking about any disturbing thing. When it was the off timing, I saw heavy rain outside, which meant I couldn't take the bus because the bus stop was 2 streets away. I knew that if I'll take the bus, I would get wet in the rain. The extreme weather was annoying me, so I decided to call my brother. I was normal and wasn't thinking about the past incident, and this time I had enough credit to call him from my own phone. I made the call, and again, before hearing any dial tune, I heard a clear and loud scream of a woman. The scream wasn't a threatening scream like a ghost scream to scare you. It was a scream, clear, loud, and full of pain and cries. My whole body got paralyzed by fear. This time I didn't move the phone away from my ear. There was silence after that scream, and a few seconds later I heard normal dial tune coming from the phone. My hands were shaking, and meanwhile my brother picked up my call, but I wasn't able to speak anything out of fear. He asked me what happened. Instead of answering him, I hung up the phone. I was shaking because that scream was horrible, and I do not want to hear anything like that again. After a few minutes, I felt normal, so instead of calling, I simply texted him. When he arrived, I asked him if he had heard anything strange when I called him. He simply said, "No, why are you asking?" I explained what was happened to me. He laughed and said, "It could be in your head, chill, it was nothing." I know he wanted me to forget about the incident, but I was too scared to forget anything, and the main reason was this. I used 2 different phones, and both times I called my brother and I got 2 different responses, which gave me goosebumps.